Okay, welcome to the module 1 of the Family Constellation Virtual Training. I'm Maya, and I see three lovely faces here that I would like to know a little bit better. So, and the group as well. So please go ahead and introduce yourself, a couple of sentences. Here comes Reem. A couple of sentences. Um, uh, where you are from, what you know about family constellation, what your experience is, and what you expect from the training or this module. Okay, so hi Reem.
Hi,
So who wants to start? Let's start with Rosemary. You are the first on my screen.
I'm Rosemary. I'm 58 years old, originally from Switzerland, but I live in New Zealand already half of my life. And I'm very lucky I don't live too far away from Maya. So, and we have a farm. I work with my dogs and with my horses and so on.
Wonderful. And what brings you to the training and what do you expect from it?
To be honest, I don't know. I would like just to know more. The whole thing, it fascinates me, but in a way, we will see.
Wonderful. Very good. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Rosemary. Janet, how about you?
okay, I'm Jan. Can you hear me?
Very good.
Okay, so I'm Janet. I'm from California. I'm a little nervous. I'm 22 years old, and what brings me here is I would like to get out of my comfort zone, and there's just a lot that has happened through my childhood and trauma. So I'm looking forward to just diving deep and learning a lot.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Farah.
Hi everyone, I'm Farah. I'm 32 in Singapore. So I'm a mom to a stepson who's 12, a daughter who's 2, and a baby who's 6 or 7 months old. And that takes up most of my time when I'm not working. But I think I met a practitioner for family constellations at a very traumatic point of time in my life. And I think that was a major turning point, and I saw the value in the modality. And for some reason, it just felt like it kept calling out to me again and again and again. Even though I've not had more sessions personally, I just felt like I needed to learn more about it. And I do hope that one day I may complete the training and I may also learn how to practice it as well.
Wonderful. There you're certainly on the right track with the starting the module 1. We can talk about how this can continue further down the line in the next 3 days. So welcome for today. And then we have Reem.
Hi everyone, my name is Reem. I am Egyptian and I live in Dubai. So the reason why I'm here is, as Maya know, I kept coming back and back and back. Like it's, as she says, it's like an onion, and every time you work on one thing, you feel like your soul is calling you to do another thing. And eventually, like even I started booking sessions for my parents and my siblings and even friends, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's just, I feel like it would add value to me, like something that my soul needs. I would love to give that gift to my family and for those who are around me as well, who would accept it, obviously.
Thank you so much, Reem. That's lovely for you all to share it. And that's exactly brings me to what is the training about. It is, first of all, about self-development. We can only give what we have, right? What we have already achieved is what we can give. So this is not a training like if you become a math teacher, for example, you study math and then you teach it. This is a training that you go through your own stuff. This is a training to shed all your entanglements, look at the dynamics in your family system, and learning about how the dynamics come to pass, what dynamics existing, how you can see them, and how you can heal them. And while you are learning about it, you will go through your own things. You are developing into a higher frequency. if you will. And from this place, you will start to be able to share, right? And the sharing can be just with your dog, thinking of Rosemary, or with the whole community in terms of facilitating group sessions or something like that, right? So that is all open, but it all starts with personal development. And I'm so thrilled that you all have shared that that is actually the first goal that you have, because that's beautiful. I'm very happy about that. It's going to be a very lovely group. I'm very happy to see you all here together. So the way it works is we have 3 days now ahead of us with the teaching content, which is completely covering the Orders of Love of Bert Hellinger. I have had the great honor and pleasure to work with him and his wife for over 4 years, very closely sometimes, and get to know his modality from own observations and how he's conducting family constellation very closely. And I am very passionate. And then I actually made bachelor degree in family constellation with the University of Jean Monnet in Brussels under his and her guidance. And then I have like around about 15 years of experience now with this modality. What is important is that you will see the theoretical knowledge or the information that you receive with these modules are super important and the basis of every understanding. However, nothing is worth anything if it's not applied. Yeah. So the application happens in your own life and through studying and observing others in family constellation. This is why a big part of the training is to observe and represent in other constellations as well. So the modules are the theory, but the whole picture you only get if you also do the workshops and the practice workshops and the other training sessions that can be all part of your journey if you want to do the complete training, right? Which we will talk by the end of this module about. So this teaching content I convey by sharing my slides with you and talk about it. And of course, if you have questions, please be welcome to ask them. I urge you to have a notebook for this that you have that you're dedicating to the training, that you can make lovely little pictures and doodles and whatever, make it nice and colorful and personal, and write all your thoughts in there while I'm talking or while you're revisiting a video content, just everything in there. And then when it is time for Q&A, then you don't forget what you wanted to ask. Yeah. And also you will see sometimes you have a question and then it kind of reveals, the answer reveals itself by the next sentence I say, right? So this is a good thing. So just wait, write it down and wait till you know the field offers us an opportunity for Q&A, and will be addressed anyhow. So you don't need to worry about that. We have ample times for everything. Secondly, the first module is probably the most theoretical one. Every other module is pretty practically orientated, so we have exercises already incorporated in the module. Yeah. So if this is like, oh my gosh, so much information, so many information when like right today and tomorrow, it will not stay like this. It will get a lot more expensive and with a lot more exercises that we can all do here on Zoom, thankfully, because it's a quite versatile tool that we are using here. Okay, so Reem, we lost your video. Why is that? Ah, here she is. Okay. While we're all together here, out of respect for everybody else, please stay, you know, in the picture and don't jump off your chair and do other things. That would be very destructive for everybody. If you need to do something urgently, of course you can do that, but you know, make sure you unmute yourself if you do that. And if it's very loud in your background, also please keep your mute button on. We have a break after around about 1.5 hours. So everything that is not needs not your immediate attention, like your baby is, crying, that would be probably not wait. But everything else, like using the toilet or having some food, can probably wait for the break, which will be halfway through after around about 1.5 hours. Okay, so let's go right into it. I go show you my slides by sharing that from my iPad, or prepared here. And you should be able to see it now. If you don't see 5 people, then you might not be in gallery view. I would invite you to go to gallery view so you see the whole group, and you can move the pictures of your group up and down on your computer on any side you want, on the top, bottom, or the side, wherever you want it to be. Can everybody see the slide? Yeah? Thumbs up? Rosemary? Yes, good. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Very good. Okay, very good. So, first of all, we talk about copyrights. When you see the slides here, it is obviously a teaching content is delivered to you for your own training purposes and not to be used for other private or commercial things that you might think of. You can not copy it or screen record it or record it in any way, shape, or form. However, it is sometimes really useful to take a screenshot of a slide. Yeah. So something that you are especially interested in, you can do that. That's no problem. You can also do that when you're on the complete training by, which is easier if you watch the video recordings. And then you can take a screenshot and print out its size, something you want to put in your notebook for some reason. So that's fine. If it's for your own use, if it's for your own training use, that's fine, right? Just not for any other use. Okay, so let's go into the module. What to expect from the training module 1. It is for personal development. It is to gain knowledge, and this knowledge then needs to be experienced in a real family constellation situation, right? In a workshop, one-on-one sessions, in the practice workshops. So it becomes, the picture becomes a whole, yeah? You can then, as we talked before, expect that you grow into it to an extent that you feel the need to share it. And when you are going the way of certification, which you can do when you sign up for the complete training, then I can assure you that you are maybe not ready for, for large groups, but that you are ready to start to practice with others safely, right? And when I say safely, I mean safe for you, because nothing is more disappointing or shocking if you feel you did something wrong or you are a failure. You don't want that to happen, right? So this is why I want to make sure with the whole complete training and the certification program that you assure yourself that you have achieved something that you can build on and be ready to share in one way or the other. What do not expect from the training module 1 is that you learn everything and then you go out and talk to everybody how they have to live, right? This is actually challenging, or because it's so tempting. You learn dynamics that you never thought of. And it is really like an aha effect. It's like, oh, really? Of course, this is how it works. Now you want to go out and tell everybody, this is how it works. Don't do that. Nobody can understand it if they are not studying the Orders of Love of Bert Hellinger, right? It sounds too rigid. It sounds too old school, if you will, right? It doesn't sound. It is something that you can live by, right? And so people will misunderstand you, and you cannot convey it in this way. So hold on with everything you learned in module 1, yeah, until you have learned more about family constellation and how to apply it. That's really important, because you will get in really unpleasant conversations with others if you start just like this, right? Okay, so do not expect that you can share everything you have learned in module 1 immediately with everybody else. So we talked about it. Is this for your own growth, personal growth? So don't go out and educate others with this information immediately. Yeah, that only comes back to you. Wait until module 3 is finished before you use any of this information, because also you don't have the full picture, not even about the theoretical system just after module 1, right? So this is just a piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Also, this is a learning method that I would like you to apply for this training, is not to think about it too much. This sounds weird, like normally you would be expected to think hard. But not so when we work with these informations, because they come from the morphogenetic field directly. They came through Bert Hellinger directly, and they come through all representatives in a family constellation directly, and they also come from me to you via the morphogenetic field. Yeah. So, of course, there's also something for the intellect. The intellect will come with us and will be amazed. I guarantee you that. But it is not the main focus of this training that you think hard. It is more that you feel into the information. Where does this fit into my, into my space? Where does it fit into? How do I translate it into my own life, into what I have seen? And this is also the way you can memorize it much, much better. So always think about, if you think, let it sink into your own field and see where it finds its place there. So we talked about the notebook. The video recordings are an awesome tool to recap everything from the modules, also to slow down or pause and read or hear repeatedly things that you probably have struggled with to that it sinks in, or that you understand, or that are so interesting to you that you just want to hear it all the time because it triggers something in you. And it's a good way to learn something effortlessly. It's just by listening more often. There is a list of books. When you're on the complete training, you will get access to the training community. By the way, Janet and Reem, did you access the training community now? Because we sorted the problem just an hour before.
I didn't check, sorry, no.
Janet, have you tried?
I tried to, but I'm still confused. Like, I can't access the chat.
That's strange. So we have to, when did you do that? Because we just fixed it a few hours ago.
So I did it after I emailed you. And
Yeah,
then
that was,
when you responded to me and you said it was fixed, I went back and I still couldn't.
okay, so maybe you have to delete your browser cache. Okay. Do it again, right? Because you might have still the old history.
Mm-hmm.
So just delete the browser cache, and then it should be fixed. Well, let's really fingers crossed. We had this problem before, so okay. Reem, you should definitely, if you if you empty your cache, your browser history, you should be able to go in there. I hope so. So let me know tomorrow by this hour if everything is okay. Yeah. Okay. So in this training community where you get access when you're on the complete training, in the training group, which is Huia, which is the native bird of New Zealand, that's your group. That is actually a bird that is extinct, isn't it? So it's not there anymore. That's the Huia, and it's a beautiful spiritual bird. There are pictures of it, and that's the name of your group. So this is something strong. Okay, let's go into the Orders of Love. The Orders of Love is a translation. Bert Hellinger has not taught in English. He has only used German language, right? And I, of course, studied with him in German, which is my mother tongue. So that was easy for me. It is translated directly from what he calls die Ordnungen der Liebe. But you can also find books where there is a translation used which is called Love's Hidden Symmetries. It is exactly the same thing, right? The orders of love and love's hidden symmetries are in Germany the same. In German, the same. So we have three parts. Part 1 is today, part 2 is tomorrow, and part 3 is in 2 days. And today we are looking at the first order of love, which is belonging, destiny, conscience, and guilt. And that is exactly how Bert Hellinger is teaching it, right? So I'm sticking very close to his teaching because I don't want to dilute it too much. I think it's so value as it is, as it has been proven for almost 50 years now. Part 2, which is tomorrow, is the second order of love, and that is all about who comes first. Or the order of, so the first is the order of belonging, and the second is then the order of ranking or the ranks. And part 3 is the third order of love, is the order of balancing, of giving and taking. And these are the 3 orders of love that which goes back to Bert Hellinger's original teaching. And this is the basis of every family constellation, of every single one, even if it's not very obvious. Doesn't need to be obvious always, but it is the base of every family constellation that is in the method of Bert Hellinger, of course, not somebody else's. So let's see what we are looking at in the first order of love. We are looking at belonging, destiny, conscience, and guilt. That means what we are looking at is family systems. What is a system? Obviously, we know what a family is, but what is a system? And what is then a family system? We need to look at belonging. Who belongs to the family system? Because if you are working in a family constellation with persons represented who do not belong to the family system, what are you doing? Reem?
We're including people who are not, like we're including in the family system, which imbalances it.
Yeah, which is, yeah, exactly, which makes no sense, which cannot heal. There's nothing, they cannot have any input on your family system, and therefore there can no cause and no healing come from. And although it's so logical, I know so many facilitators who are facilitating a family constellation and putting representatives for family members there that do not belong to a family system. And this is why it's so important. And it's still, you know, the group is still excited because it becomes like it's still a group experience, yeah. And it might be have some therapeutic effect, of course, but it is not a family constellation, right? So this is all. It's not a family constellation. Whatever it is, it might be nice, but it's not a family constellation, and it cannot have this healing impact of a family constellation going back 7 generations, right? So we also look what is conscience, what is the personal, the collective, and the spiritual conscience, because this is important to understand the orders of love, how Bert Hellinger teaches it. Bert Hellinger has talked about that so much and he has wrote over 50 books in his lifetime, and a lot of books about conscience. I don't think we need to focus on that, but I still want to teach it to you, right? So you know it. Destiny, we are talking about the destiny. We are talking about common destiny, and finally about free choice. We always have to talk about free choice if we think about destiny, right? And then, very important for family constellation, we talk about guilt and fear and death in family systems and how this is related. Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the family system. That is the basic knowledge about family constellation. What is a system? First of all, we need to ask ourselves, what is a system? So first of all, we are talking about fields when we are talking about system. A field is an area where, you know, think of a circle and there's things in the circle and things outside the circle, yeah? And when we think about everything that is inside, let's say a circle or a square, it doesn't matter, that's a field. But in this field, there can be molecules or organic matter or even people, and it could be crazy. They just do whatever they want to do, right? So this is just a field. But now this can be organized by information. Now, if a field is organized, it becomes a system. Yeah. So I repeat, just because you have like a defined group of something or persons, that doesn't make it a system. It makes it a system when it becomes organized. And why or what makes it organized is normally a common goal. So you have a field, let's talk about people. They have a common goal, and because they want to achieve a common goal, they have rules. And that makes it organized. And so this, they are organized, they become a system. Now in a family, what would be the common goal there? Just put your hands up if you have any ideas. What is a common goal in a family? Reem.
Survival?
Yeah, well, yeah. Survival of what?
The family? Okay. Rose.
Rose. You have to unmute you so we can hear you. You just press on your mic and then you know your mic is red. Remember where I show you that in the corner? There's a video and there's a mic. You just press on the mic and you are unmuted. That's always good to put the glasses on. Yes.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
To bring up kids.
Yes, exactly, to procreate and to let what survive? The genes. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that's what a family wants. Yes, it wants to survive, it wants to bring up kids. Why? So the family does not die with the last surviving person, right? It wants to continue. A family system wants to continue to exist. And that's a common goal, right? And everyone and every member of the family system is subconsciously agreeing to that when they join a family system. That's what they do, right? So now the common goal is to continue to exist. So we have the common goal and we have the members of the family system. Yeah. And then we have to find out who belongs to the family system to define the members of family system. Yeah. And these are the members who have the common goal that this family is going ahead, not somebody else's, this family. So, in family constellations, as I said before, and I'm happy to repeat it because it's a really important point, is we only work with family systems, meaning with members who belong to the family system, not to another. So now I said belonging now 5 times or something. Now let's look at what that means. Who belongs to a family system? First of all, family members belong to a family system. These are relationships through bloodline, meaning somebody has given their genes, yeah, to a descendant. And we need to look at it also from the aspect of epigenetic inheritance. Have you ever heard of that? Yes, Farah? Yeah? You heard of epigenetic inheritance?
I'm just epigenetic, not inherit, like not the phrase together.
Okay, good. Good point, because epigenetics is that what turns on and off genes, if you will, like very simplified, right? Now, if you would not have, we've been all brought up. Well, my generation is probably not the younger generation, but my generation is brought up with genes are everything. They are determine life. Yeah. It wasn't until 20 years ago they found out that the genes is doing nothing when it's not on. There are lots of dormant genes. And when they do nothing, they have no effect, right? So genes are not the reason why anything is happening. It is the epigenetics which is turning a gene on or off. And I like this example of a grown child or teenager. You have a gene that makes your nose grow. Yeah. So when you're a baby born, you have a tiny, itsy, itsy nose, right? And now when you become a teenager, you have a pretty much more grown nose. So there is a gene that says nose grow. And this gene is switched on the moment the baby is conceived, basically, right? Imagine this gene would not turn off again. Can you just picture how we would look like, right? Nose is up to here, right? So this gene, nose grow, is turned off when you are adult. Not completely, because actually the nose is slightly still growing when you get older, but pretty much turned off, right? So this is for every gene we have. It's an on and off switch, which is called epigenetics. And why is this so important? Because this is also the way traumas are inherited. And this is why we are interested in. So these epigenetics can be malfunctioning. So there could be a malfunctioning epigenetic that is not turning off the gene that lets the nose grow. And the nose is growing continuously. Not that I know of, I don't know it, but that's just an example, right? So if an epigenetic is malfunctioning, a gene is not appropriately either turned on or off, this is what causes an imbalance in the body, which causes mild symptoms to severe diseases. And the source of an epigenetic damage, and this is what the science has given us, I think it was around about 10 years ago, is what? A trauma. A psychological trauma is causing a damage in the epigenetics. And this is inherited. So, meaning, if your grandfather was in the Second World War and is severely traumatized through this experience, he will develop an epigenetic problem that he will inherit to his son. This son will not have memories of a traumatized war scenario, but it might have an allergy to dust. That is an epigenetic malfunctioning, right? Now he has this, he doesn't know that, but he has this inherited epigenetic malfunctioning, which is in his life, let's say allergy to dust. And now he has its own trauma. Let's say he has a childhood trauma, maybe a car accident or something like that. He was in the hospital, barely survived. Now he has another epigenetic malfunctioning in his body that adds to the one he has inherited. Now he has a son. And the son is inheriting from the grandfather the first trauma trauma from the Second World War, and from his father, the trauma from the car accident when he was a child. And now this son in third generation, he does not have a dust allergy, and he does not have like his dad maybe had whatever a disease. He might has now he has he's probably autistic or Asperger's, or he has suicidal thoughts or something. This is while all the traumas of the former generation have been accumulated in him through epigenetic inheritance. And we who do family constellations at Bert Hellinger over 40 years, you see that in a family constellation way before the science comes over with an explanation, right? So this is how it goes. The science is always last to know, right? But you could see it clearly, and this is the explanation. This is why in family constellation we are working with the bloodline, because only there is epigenetic inheritance. If there is a child, a stepchild, for example, right? The stepchild cannot inherit an epigenetic malfunctioning from the stepmother or the stepfather, logically, right? Right? So this is, although the stepchild is in the day-to-day life very close to a stepmother or father, that doesn't matter, not for family constellation, right? Because we are looking at the epigenetic inheritance of trauma. And we are going back to where the trauma is and clear it there with the modality that Bert Hellinger has given. Then we have a belonging that is on top of bloodline that is bound together by destiny. So two people who are not part of the same blood-related family can have a common destiny or come together through destiny and form a bond that makes the other one be part of the family system, and vice versa. Either temporary or forever. So that depends on the way they came together. This is when you have a partner or former partner. Partners and former partners belong to a family system, although they are not blood related. Excuse me. They come together because there is a reason why you choose a partner or not a partner. Believe it or not, your family system has a say in that, because this partner does something for the family system subconsciously. And this is why he belongs or she belongs to the system. The same is for former partners. Adopting parents can be part of the family system, but not because they are parents, because they are not. They are not egg and sperm. They are adopting parents, but they can be part of the family also through destiny. Yeah. But there must be a very strong reason and a strong bond for it. And we will spend some time on adoption, because obviously this is a little bit more tricky, how to look at adoptions in family constellation. Then a very, very common family member that becomes part of a family system that comes up in a family constellation is either a victim or a perpetrator from another family system. Through the act of violence, either physical violence or emotional or mental violence, one can become part of somebody else's family system. Also, if you will, by destiny, right? And then the same, we have what we call the advantage or disadvantage giver and receiver. It is like and follows pretty much the same victim and perpetrator dynamic. It is just milder, because by victim and perpetrator dynamic, we are normally looking at a death. Normally, whatever happens there is causing the death of one person, which is then the victim. The advantage giver and disadvantage giver are not, there's no death involved, but it is a life-threatening disadvantage that happens. For example, I'm going back to the Second World War in Germany. Before the World War was initiated, you know how the Jewish people has been discriminated, and that was so severe that by law somebody could just take the land, the house, the business of a Jewish people for nothing and put it under his name, right? And this is a disadvantage we are talking about, yeah? Because the person who was forced to give up everything is losing kind of, you know, everything, meaning also the basis of his survival. Well, obviously he has survived because he didn't die, because otherwise it would be a victim perpetrator situation. But these are the situations we are looking at when we are looking at the dynamic of advantage and disadvantage giver, which you will learn a lot about it in the course. So just bear that in mind. It follows the same dynamic victim perpetrator. You only don't see a dead person there, right? Lost children, which I just vaguely call lost, there is lots of dynamics why a child is lost, but in general, a child that is that would be through bloodline part of the family system but has been lost as early as 2 or 3 weeks after conception already belongs to the family system. Children that are given away because, especially in like, if you look back 5, 6 generations in your family system, there might be a child who was disabled and people were embarrassed and they just give it away. Or there might be a child that was illegal because they were not married and it has been given away. Yeah. And morally, nobody thought that was a bad thing. But the family system, whose common goal is to survive the bloodline, they think that's a bad thing. Right? Because this child is not acknowledged anywhere. Yeah. And the family soul will remember that and tries to bring it back in. So the family system can continue in a healthy way. Yeah. So the forgotten or dismissed are also part of the family system, although nobody talks about them. Like there could be a great-grandfather that might have been dismissed because he was not worthy in the eyes of the family then. You know, he was a failure, a loser, whatnot. There are lots of circumstances that can happen that a person, especially in former generation, has been completely, so to speak, deleted from the records. And you never hear about him. Never. You never. The family doesn't talk about them. But again, the family soul will remember. This is an information that is kept in the morphogenetic field and can be accessed in the family constellation. And this is why sometimes really surprises show up that the client, the one who's constellating, can hardly believe. And sometimes, actually, after family constellation, and I have had that a lot, they all of a sudden receive, you know, a call, or they have a discussion with a distant cousin, and all of a sudden an information is delivered that fits absolutely the picture they had seen in the family constellation. So it is important not to doubt what you see in a family constellation, which is, if it's thoroughly conducted, even if you have never heard of it in your family. Just because you have, or put it the other way, just because your family is not talking about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Or even more so, it might be great chances it does exist, if they try to not talk about it. Yeah. And of course, just because the body has given up life forces doesn't mean anything for the family soul. Yeah, death is just leaving the physical realm. For the family soul has no impact. So everyone who is dead is still, if he or she carries a trauma, still alive as far as the family soul is concerned. This is why you represent in family constellations also dead persons, people, yeah, of the family system. This is very common, and without that we couldn't even work, because most of the people that are represented are already passed. Which does not mean anything for the family soul, because the family soul is, like all souls are, living beyond time and space. That doesn't matter. It has absolutely it makes no difference. Which is also great news. Just because somebody died with a trauma doesn't mean he cannot be healed. And that's what we actually do in family constellations. So, who belongs to the family system? Family members related by blood in direct line, 7 generations back. What is a direct line? It's always the father and the mother. And everyone has a father and the mother, because every person who has ever been born needs an egg and a sperm. Even if we have donors, or we have all kinds of modern, how do you call the patchwork or whatever families like, that doesn't matter. In the family constellation, you look at a mother and a father, that's the egg and the sperm. If the child or the adult that you're working with may have never met any of those people, that does not matter. Who else belongs? The partners and former partners in 2 generations, maybe 3. And when we say partners and former partners, we not necessarily talk about everyone with sexual contact, but it is somebody who has an impact on your life or the life of your client. Yeah. Siblings, half siblings, are also part of the family system in 2, maybe in 3 generations. So always in 2 generations, meaning the client and the parents, maybe in the grandparents as well. What is also mean is certainly not in the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th generation. And you know why in a minute when I share with you my little animation. Victim and perpetrators, however, are part of the family system in all generations. It does not stop at the 2nd or 3rd. And in fact, you will see it a lot. Victim perpetrators coming up in 5th, 6th, and 7th generations, and they belong to the family system. And the same is for the advantage and disadvantage giver, because they are practically following the dynamics of a victim perpetrators, only that nobody has died because of their action. Yeah. So belonging through, so just to recap it, you can look at it. Belonging through blood is the first thing. Belonging through destiny, partners, for example, is the second. And belonging through action is advantage and disadvantage giver or victim and perpetrator. There are 3 ways you or somebody else belongs to a family system: through birth, through destiny, or through actions. That also means, on the other hand, no other impact can have make anybody being part of somebody's family system, right? Even if they seem to be close, like very close friends, or yeah, basically very close friends, very close friends even. Yeah, they cannot be part of the family system if they are not part through destiny or action. Victim perpetrator, what is it? What are we looking at? I make some examples. So very obviously somebody who killed somebody else. Somebody who has killed, taken the life of somebody else is the perpetrator, and the somebody else is the victim. This can be a vigorous act of violence, like a murder, or it can be an accident, a car accident, or any kind of accident, really. That does not matter. The motive does not matter to make this victim part of the family system of the perpetrator and vice versa. So the motive does not be maleficence. Well, sometimes I have a strange accent and I don't know how to pronounce, but you know, badly, like with bad intentions. It does not need to be that. Yeah, it can be accidental as well. However, the result is the same through the victim and perpetrator situation. Through the act of violence and through the death of the other one, the victim perpetrator dynamic is created forever. It can't be redone. You can also think that the victim perpetrator are also bound together by destiny, because if you look on a metaphysics realm, like say on a soul level or on a spiritual level, you can say, well, they have agreed to come together, yeah, and act out this act of violence for some reason or the other. So the destiny would have like been a contract of souls or something like that, yeah. So it's also a way to look at it. And it actually helps to, in a family constellation, to look at it, not to be drawn emotionally to one side, because there is no side. Yeah, the victim is not better than the perpetrator. If you would think that, you would be, you know, judged morally. And when you start to judge and apply morals in a family constellation, you're losing the connection to the morphogenetic field. And you are not constellating a family constellation, facilitating a family constellation anymore. You are putting your own belief system on the participant. Yeah. So stay away from that. Always stay connected with the morphic field. That also means don't judge morally any situation you see. Also, to judge morally anything does not help anybody, by the way. It doesn't heal family wounds. It doesn't move representatives. And this is probably the most challenging thing that you have if you dive deeper into family constellation, the orders of love, is that it will shake maybe your belief system and the morals you have learned. And that's a good thing. You will see. So nothing, you don't need to worry about losing something valuable. I can guarantee you that. There is no values in these morals. Not when we do family constellation. Yes, in a day-to-day live, yeah, of course, there is some value for some people more than others. This is why people who have not been exposed to and interested to family constellation will not understand the orders of love, because they come from the judgmental point of morals. And you come from the objective point of orders, yeah? And then, you know, you can't understand each other just like this, right? This is an important information that probably doesn't make sense to you right now, but I want you to hear it here, because we will talk about that a lot during the course, and it will become clearer and clearer every time. Guilt and shame is creating the entanglement between victim and perpetrator, because every victim perpetrator has or is exposed to this emotion. The victim normally feels shame, and the perpetrator normally feels guilt. And these emotions are always disguised. Yeah. The shame is disguised as anger. And the guilt is often also disguised as anger, sometimes disguised as another emotion. But this is important to see that you never see the guilt and shame instantaneously, but we learn how we see the signs. Beneath every negative emotion, or if you will, low vibrating emotion, lies in the end either guilt or shame. And this is where you see a victim perpetrator dynamic coming through or appearing in a family constellation, because you see these emotions in the representative. So what will heal? Only love will heal. We know that since the Beatles, and it is true. It is true. Only love is healing. This is why if you have morals and you judge what you see, you can't heal. Because love means that you love everyone equal. Everybody. That is unconditional love. Nobody has more rights to be on earth or to have a life than anybody else. Victim and perpetrator. So while I say love will heal means that in a victim perpetrator situation, the healing movement between the victim perpetrator is love for each other. Yeah. And how is that possible is because the facilitator has also the love for both and not judging the perpetrator, for example, or the victim for being stupid or whatnot, you know. Victim and perpetrator in a family constellation, you can clearly see that, and that was probably the most disturbing fact in the Orders of Love, that Bert Hellinger had a lot of negative press about it in the 80s and 90s, a lot. And a lot of critique from psychotherapists and who knows what, yeah, religious groups and everything is. In a family constellation, you can see clearly that healing for the whole family system is only possible if victim and perpetrator, who are always separated, come together. And from a point of moral, this is something you say, oh, what? There is this little girl that has been brutally murdered by this guy, and how, yes, morals. But in a family constellation, from the soul point, these belong together. Yeah, victim, perpetrator. No matter who did what, that is not up to discussion, right? So if they cannot come together, healing for the family soul is not possible. And that's a fact that has been shown over and over, and it still does in every single family constellation, but is still in the head of the people. Often that is not possible to understand. And this is why you can't discuss these things. It's impossible. You know, if somebody's really interested, just said, come to a family constellation and experience it for yourself. Because you cannot expect in the day-to-day life, in the outer world, that there's a victim and there's a perpetrator. You won't say to the victim, now go to the perpetrator and say, whatever, I love you, right? Obviously. But in a family constellation, that's different, because we are talking about a soul movement there. And the souls want that. Yeah. And they feel highly encumbered by the morals it's put on them, which keeps them separate. So the same is for advantage and disadvantage giver, only that there was nothing so drastic as a death, but drastic enough as creating a common destiny. Yeah. So the most important case you can see is, most importantly, land, because land is kind of the basis of a livelihood, you know. So if it's about land, it is always kind of coming to the point that it's become traumatic and the family soul is storing this information. Just somebody, if just somebody has pickpocketed somebody else's purse, yeah, that probably doesn't create a bond that you see in a family constellation, right? But if this purse was everything they had, and from there on they suffered, and they couldn't provide for the family, they were, you know, hungry and whatnot, then it might come up. So it all, you have to see it in the picture. But then you, again, these details are not important because you, A, probably will never see it in the family constellation, and B, for the family soul, it doesn't matter that you know the exact circumstances of the disadvantage. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not so clear. But it's still healing. The healing movement still takes place. They also have this sensation of guilt and shame. Have you ever been pickpocketed? Yeah. Does it not feel like I felt? I had that 3 times in Europe, not in New Zealand, but in New Zealand, in like in Italy and in Spain, and where, you know, my purse was stolen once, and twice my phone, and I felt really embarrassed that it happened to me, honestly. And that then I can understand that, you know, as a victim, you feel shame for that it happens to you. You feel, you know, why did I not prevent it from happening? Yeah, what's wrong with me? Why me? That sounds familiar to one of you? Have you ever experienced that? Yes, you have, Reem. Yes, Rosemary. Yes. And then in the long run, the one who is taking the advantage of somebody else feels guilt, although they probably don't want to say it. Yeah. But there's always this underlying thing that, like, you know, it wasn't right. It wasn't right. And this is why you often have criminals who have been caught. Often criminals want to be caught. So they're, you know, I don't know whether you know, I was a lawyer in Germany, and I didn't have criminal law, but you know, you crisscross things, and you experience that in witnesses and in other. They want to talk about it. They can't hold it in, really. They want to talk about it because they want to relieve themselves from the guilt they feel deep down inside for what they have done, right? And it's very hard not to talk about it then. So our day-to-day life experiences is confirming actually what you see in family constellation on a very deep soul level. Yeah, advantage, disadvantage giver, victim, perpetrator, they have the feeling of either guilt or shame. Also, love will heal here, so they do belong together. And in a family constellation, you are, as a facilitator, enabling this coming together on a soul level. And that's a healing movement. So now I have made this little animation, so you have a visual to who belongs to the family system. We have pink mother's family, blue father's family, gray would be victim and advantage giver, and red would be perpetrator or disadvantage giver. Then we have the siblings in yellow and partners or former partners in green. Now here's you, that is the first generation. When I say you, I don't mean you, I mean the one you are working with, the one who is constellating. And that can be confusing, especially when mothers come and say, I want to constellate for my child. Then you think, okay, who is now the first generation? Is it the mother or is it the child, right? Because it's important, you're only working with 7 generations. Now, if the mother, if you say the child is the first generation, the mother is already the 2nd generation. Yeah. And the grandchildren or the parents of the mother who is with you on the chair, when I'm thinking of family constellation workshops, sitting on the chair, when you consider her to be the 2nd generation, then the parents are already 3rd generation. So when in the family constellation for the child, the grandparents ex-partners appear, they might not belong. So it is important to know who is the first generation. Now, just to round that up, if a mother is the only person who can actually consulate for somebody else. Nobody else can do that, right? You cannot say, okay, I'm consulating for this friend or I'm consulating for this relative. That's not possible. The morphogenetic field will not reveal anything of value, right? But the mother can consulate for her own child, her blood-related own child. Yeah. So that is the only situation where you can ask yourself the question, which generation are we looking at, right? To start. So let's assume in my little animation that we know which one it is, because it's a client, whoever has an issue. That's the first generation. The second generations are the parents, your parents, father and mother. That's easy. The third generations are the grandparents. Now everybody has 4 grandparents, 2 grandmothers and 2 grandfathers. It does not matter if they are dead, if they ever met them, if they even been recorded in the family books. Because it only matters that they gave egg and sperm to conceive and create another human being, right? In this chart. Now they are the great-grandparents, and now we already have 8 persons, and that's the 4th generation. Then we have from the 5th to the 7th, we call them ancestors. And we have actually, I actually have made the math, it is 240. And that's only the direct, the blood-related direct line, yeah, only parents. And then this little sign you have there is what the sign that I created for the source, because we often in the family constellation going back to the source, and the source is always part of the family system. You don't need to have a picture about the source. You don't need to call it God or spirit or anything. It's just the source. It's where life comes from. Obviously, there must be some form of beginning for a family system, right? Somewhere. And that is what we call the source. But in between the 7th generation and the source, this generation don't count the family system. If a traumatic experience has not been resolved within 7 generations, the family system will put it ad acta, file it, archive it. And I've actually had an in-person family constellation workshop where I actually witnessed that the 7th generation put it to an end, although it was solved. Yeah. That was very interesting. So this system that Bert Hellinger has observed in the Orders of Love is very accurate. So now this is not all. Of course, now we have the siblings. And remember, the siblings belong to the family system when they are in your generation, the first generation, when they're in your parents' generation, and in your grandparents' generation, maybe. Maybe not, but it is possible. It is definitely not in your great-grandparents' generation, 4th or 5th, 6th or 7th. Cannot happen. And why is that? Just look at the numbers. I mean, the family soul is not stupid, right? If you look at the if you think about how many people would form one family system, it would not be organized anymore, it would be kind of becoming chaotic, right? And remember, a system has to be an organized field. Yeah, cannot be an or chaotic field or a random field of random people. So this is really interesting to see how clever the system works, right? That the family system makes sure that only as many people are part of the family system that they can actually handle. When you now ask, so where are the siblings of the great grandparents? Are they don't belong to a family system? Of course not. They have their own, right? It's just a little black person that is the first generation is somebody else. And so they have their own family system. And of course, you also belong to multiple family systems because you might be blood related to this family, and then you have a perpetrator situation with another family system, or there is your ex-partner, and so you belong also to multiple family systems. You're not only to one. So when you're facilitating a family constellation, or you want to understand how a family constellation works, then you always need to ask yourself, who is constellating? And that is the little black person. And then you know who belongs to this, her, or his family system. That's all you need to know. So next, that would be the green people. The green people are the partners of former partners. They belong to the family system by destiny. So now we understand that for the partners, but what about the former partners and how many? This is normally the common question I get here. The former partners belong to a family system because they made way for the current partners. So there's a destiny, because if the former partners would not have made way, the partner would not be there, and so the descendant would not exist. It is so important. Yeah. And this is why only former partners belong to a family system who were potentially partners, like parents. That is so important. And not so interestingly, Sophie Hellinger, the wife of Bert Hellinger, who was working with him for the last 15 years, I suppose it was, in one constellation, she said, no, it was in our training group actually. In a constellation, she asked somebody, it was a woman who was constellating, about her, and she was young, she was in her mid-20s, about her sexual partners, how many sexual partners she had. And if you think for yourself how many sexual partners you had, and you were probably in your mid-20s or say 30s, you easily come, even if you are very picky, 10 or something, I don't know. I mean, that's not difficult. And if you are putting them all there in a constellation, it is very daunting, right? If you have a representative for each of them. And then you would wonder, what impact has that? And then I found out for myself, and so Sophie wanted to make the point that every sexual partner is a former partner, right? But then through my own experience with family constellation, I came to the conclusion that this is not so. Only the partner, not the fling, not, you take an anti-conception pill or something, or you use whatever, and you're never going to get pregnant, this partner will never be considered a family member, because there's not a potential that it ever gives life to one of the descendants. And remember, the family system is concerned about existing, continuing to exist. So this person would be completely uninteresting for the family system. And it really does not belong to the family system. So I would urge you to not look too far, look towards these, and it's often just one, maybe two significant others who gave way for the current partner, who then has a child with somebody who then forms the family system. So then we have the red people, which are the perpetrator or disadvantage givers, and they can and often do go all the way back to the 7th generation. And if you think of when you are born and what 7 generations back it is, what time it was when they were living, there was a lot of violence going on. Right? So there is a likelihood that there are lots of people that are not blood related are part of the family system. And then we have, of course, the victims and the advantage givers. Same. So now you see this as the figure 240, but now you see it's a lot more actually. It's a lot more than 240. It could be much more than that. And still it is an organized family, an organized field. Because through these actions of that forms victim and perpetrator, these actions are defined and they are probably also traumatic and are stored in the family soul. So now here's the black guy. He wants to heal. What is he doing? He goes back through this generation, finding all the wounds, all these traumas, all these traumas that are inherited through epigenetic damage. And then hopefully, you know, becomes lighter and happier. Well, he will. We know that. And can go ahead, looking into the future, being happy again. Yeah. That's our work. And leave them behind. They are still there, but they are now in order. That is the order of love. Everything is now in order and everybody feels better. Everybody feels the relief. Going back 7 generations and going forward 7 generations. That's the magic, because the children and the grandchildren and all the unborn children 7 generations in the future are also relieved from this particular trauma that has been revealed in a family constellation. So very deep, actually 14 generations, very long time. So probably it's a good point to for questions now regarding who belongs to the family system. Is there anything that came up for you? Is there anything you want to point out, repeat, or question, or anything? Yes, Farah.
Hi, thank you so much, Maya. It's been very, very interesting. My question is not so much about who belongs, but I think you talked about what happens after 7 generations and that memories being archived. I'm struggling to understand what happens after the 7, and is there a reason why 7 is such a magic number when it comes to looking at the family system? Like, why not 6 or 8?
Well, I can't answer this question, but I can assure you, you see it in the family constellation. So I explained to you what I saw. There was this, I don't know what it was, a client was there and they had an issue. And so we placed representatives for the parents, representative for the grandparents, representative for the great-grandparents. That was 1, 2, 3, that's the 4th generation. They all had the same, the representative all had the same sensation. They all had the same issue, if you will. Yeah. Okay. So we went back. We put representatives. That's a great thing in a family constellation. You know, you just put more representatives. So representative for the 5th generation, representative for the 6th generation, still the same. There was no movement. There was nothing. It was still the same. And then the last generation, 7th generation, right? So we saw all the generations with all the same issues. They had all the same emotion. They were all disconnected. It was all the same. And then the 7th generation had the urge to lay down and said, I'm tired. She really said that. I'm so tired. I'm tired. I'm just tired. No, I'm not angry. No, I'm not just, I'm just tired. And then I asked her what she wants to say, what she's, you know, what's coming to her. And she said, it ends with me. And that is how it looked in a family constellation. So instead of putting the 8th generation there, and the 9th and the 10th, yeah, they might also have the same emotion, but the 7th generations took it on to take it off the books, if you will. And that is what you see in a family constellation, what Bert Hellinger says when it says the healing goes back 7 generations. After that, it is not necessary, because the family soul kind of has given up that healing will ever occur. And in order to survive, it kind of closes the book. That's all I can say to it. I hope that helps.
That does. Thank you so much, Maya. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very good. More questions?
You said mothers could consolate for children.
Yeah.
What about fathers?
Yes, as well.
Fathers as well.
Yes, same thing. Fathers can also consolate.
Okay.
But nobody else, just mother and father. Thank you to clarify that. That was very precise. So yes, thank you. Mothers and fathers.
So anyway, a father could constellate for his daughter, or a father can only do sons.
No, also the daughters. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any child.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Reem.
But the kids have to be like children, or like still, like for example, my father can still do for me. Like I have to be like minor. Yeah.
That's a very good question. From my experience, it really only works for children. If the child is old enough to do their own constellation, they should come and do the constellation. You know, I cannot say 18 years is kind of the magic mark. You know, some children are not mature with 18, some are already mature with 15. So I would just say if the child has a maturity and wants to take control of their own lives, it's probably the mark where the parents cannot consolate for them anymore. However, the parents can always consolate for themselves. And that's the next thing I want to point out, because the situation that a parent, either mother or father, is consolating for a child, it is genuinely doing a consolating for the child is rare. Because if you really listen careful to what the mother or the father says in the consultation, they are worried. It's all about them. They are worried, you know, about what the child, you know, has a disease or whatnot. So the consolation is actually for the parent, not for the child, because the child is maybe not worried at all. You know? So it is really rare. And I tell you an example. I don't know how often I have a genuine consolation for a child, not very often, but one stick in my memory. It was very impressive. And that was the mother came to the child was 5 years old. And the mother came to me and said, she loves the child very much. It's a family with 3 or 4 children. They're all very nice, very good, very loving family. And this child is lovely, but in the morning when it's the son, wakes up, and she wakes him up to go to school, or he probably was 6 or something. He is abusive. He's using abusive language to the mother, and she was desperate, you know. She was crying every morning because he was so rude with her. And that lasts for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then he was a sweet boy. So we had a constellation in a workshop setting, in an in-person one. And just because what I see when I talk to her, I was very sure that this little boy had a attached spirit. So I didn't say that. I didn't know whether the mother was ready for that or not. But we did a genuine constellation for the son, where the mother wasn't part of, because I asked a representative to come for the son, of course, for the attached spirit, which I knew he had, but nobody else in the workshop, and for a third representative for the family of the attached spirit. And then in the family constellation, it was clear the attached spirit was very, very close to the son, and the son was very, very sad or encumbered by that. The representative, obviously, the son wasn't there. And then through the movements of the soul, the spirit has detached from the son and went to his family, his spiritual family, and the son felt the representative of the son felt relief, and the mother also, she was observing that she didn't know what it was. And then I asked the mother, when this first happened, that the son was so abusive in the mornings, and she said, he was like, it's 2 years ago. And then I asked her what happened before, the month before, or a few months before, and then she revealed he had a head injury because he was falling on his head in a public place. It was a mall, a very busy mall. And this is a typical situation where people, especially children, can catch attached spirits, right? So anyway, so this constellation was done. She didn't quite understand what was going on. Obviously, how that is. You're not explaining everything to the detail. You never know how ready everybody is to. You know a lot. If you're finished with this course, you know a lot, but you're not sharing. You only share tidbits, because you must understand you can only share what other people are ready to receive. Yeah. So, however, she went home, and I actually didn't hear from her at all. But 2 days later, an acquaintance of mine, told me that she met her, and she was telling to her son has changed. She's so happy in the morning, and she's just, no abusive language anymore, anything like this, right? And that's a good thing about family constellation as well, that most people don't even remember that there was a family constellation where this is how it works. It works on such a deep level that consciously most people are not even catching up with it, right? so everything was fine. Obviously the attached spirit is gone. The child was happy, the mother was happy, and she never really understood what was going. Later I talked to her, but she never really understood what was going in the family constellation, but it was obviously it worked. So this will happen a lot when you work with family constellation, and that's no problem at all. Not everybody needs to know everything, right? Yeah, just not important. They all want to be happier, and you want to be more free and more happy, and that's what you get, and that's all that counts. So that was just an example where the mother was not represented in the family constellation because it was genuinely for her son. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, Reem?
Piggybacking on the same question. So what about children? Like, for example, my sister, she has Down syndrome. So those children, like people who don't have their own, like, she's 34, for example, but she can't make her own decisions make sense. So what about those? Like, how do we...
Yeah, the parents definitely can control for a child like this who is incapable of. But you need also to be open, and you see that in the family constellation, which is great because you have the representatives, that maybe the representative for your sister, when your parents decide to constellate for her, maybe doesn't feel any issues with it. Then it's a parent who has the issue. So then it's actually constellation for the parent, not for the child, and that is most times the case. Okay, any other questions? Because again, we are not judging life forms. Like, every life form is equally loved. is loved into existence, you know, it's equal. Just because somebody doesn't act like most people doesn't mean anything to the soul, as per se, you know. It's just for us morally, it means something, but not for the soul. And if she might never has an issue, it's nothing she wants to solve, the soul, you know. It's not like you have broken your foot and you want it to heal, you know. Somebody who comes with some specialities to this world is not a broken foot. It's not incomplete. It's, you know, doesn't need to be healed. Okay, any other question? Yes, Rosemary. Yep. You find your mic. It's on the corner, in the left corner, and it's, yeah. Here you go. You got it already. Yep.
Yeah, but now a gallery one. Where do I find the gallery? Oh,
The gallery is the top right corner. That says view, doesn't it?
View options.
Yeah.
And
And you
now
go with your
gallery.
mouse. You go with your mouse.
Full screen, hide, exit full screen. No.
No,
Oh,
that is
whatever.
just a screen. Okay. Just ask your
Whatever.
question first. Ask your
Yeah.
question first.
What about the animals? You see, once you did a constellation for me and an animal came through.
Yeah.
Where do they fit in?
Yeah, that's amazing. Eh? So I was amazed. That was my first constellation with an animal as well. So where do they fit in? Well, to start with, they might be representing a family member from a past deceased family member. So that's some, first of all. Secondly, an animal can probably be part of the family system as much as any other person through destiny or action. Yeah.
Okay.
Then it does not, it's just the blood related line is just one option out of three. It could be destiny or action that brings non. And I personally consider animals to be people as well, regardless how many legs they have, right? So for me, that is not a surprise that especially dogs are representing either another family member, or they are bound through destiny or action to the family.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I just see that the clock is ticking and we are already halfway through. So I suggest we have a 10 minutes break. Now I will put a timer on and you will see it on your screen. So you know when 10 minutes are over, and please make sure you're back. When you're on your break, I would also suggest that you are clicking on your mic and your video. So you're muted and you turn your video off, and then you can do whatever you want to do. And 10 minutes later, I see you all back here. But don't leave the meeting, Rosemary.
Oh, I try.
Don't leave the meeting. And if you do accidentally, you have to dial in again, right? With the email.
Thank you.
See you in 10 minutes.
I can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
No, you can't hear me?
Now we can.
Now.
Oh, good. So, okay, so the lost children. The lost children are part of the family system, and they are a big part of the family system. Many constellations have been successfully solved an issue by finding a lost child and integrating it into the family system and giving it its original place. So in family constellations, we are often looking for a lost child. So what is a lost child? First of all, there is a lost twin. I don't know whether you have heard about it, do you? Or not? Have you heard the term lost twin? No? Yes? No? Yeah? Okay. So I quickly explain it. Every 10th pregnancy is a twin pregnancy in humans. That's kind of a statistic figure. But not every 10th pregnancy is actually giving birth to two children. More often, in most cases, only one of the twins survives this trimester, the first 3 months, and goes ahead in the womb of the mother, and the other twin dies early. Now, this lost twin is part of the family system, and for the surviving twin, it is a very traumatic experience. If you imagine you're living close together, that's all you know, right? It's a contact to the other child in the womb of your mother, and the movements and the heartbeat of this other child as well, and all of a sudden it stops. This is very traumatic for the surviving child, and it comes often up in family constellations. It's one of the first things, like if you look at the onion layer, it's often one of the first things, if there is a lost twin for the client, that comes up in a family constellation that needs to be solved before we can go ahead with anything else. So that's the lost twin situation. It's a lost child in the family system. It needs to be found, acknowledged, and integrated, and then the energy can flow again, the love can flow again. Hidden special needs children, especially in former generations, not so much today, but we are going back 7 generations, and in like 200 or 300 years ago, that was for a family devastating to have a special needs child. So it often has been hidden or given away. So that was common. This might not acknowledged and needs to be acknowledged in a family constellation to heal a wound in the family. A child has been given away because it was illegally conceived, not in a marriage, for example, or the mother felt she had enough children. There was no way for contraceptives, and she just couldn't look after more children, so she gave it away, or lots of things, or child is stolen from somebody, or whatever happens, right? So this child that doesn't that is not raised in a family is often forgotten, yeah, and then nobody talks about it, and somebody takes a burden on from this family system, often a sibling. And this burden can be anything from a disease to an allergy to unhappiness in general, or to not being happy in relationships, be anything really. The aborted child is also part of the family system, right? And it's actually twofold part of the family system. First, it's through blood part of the family system, and the aborted child is also a victim because it's a murder, not morally, but in the orders of love, to take the life of the child, even though it's legally it's accepted. For the soul, it's still a forced death, yeah, a killing, right? So this needs to be acknowledged, and this child needs to be given the space it needs to be acknowledged, and then an issue can be solved. The miscarried child is the same thing. There is not an act of violence, of course. I remember accidents also causing the death, also making this part of the family system, and that's the same with children, right? The stillborn, of course, is a child that is obviously part of the family system, but some may consider, because it was never alive, that it doesn't count, but it does, definitely. It is a child. The mother of its stillborn children will always be a mother, even if it was her only child, and she is kind of, considers herself childless, but in fact, she's not childless, she has a child. Same if she had aborted a child or miscarried a child, she is already a mother. So she has this mother energy. A child who died, of course, at any age is still part of the family system, and often the grief of the parents is so severe about a dying children that they don't want to talk about it, and they kind of want to delete it out of their life in order to be able to continue to do what they do and maybe look after their own children. So it is not uncommon that a child who has died is in the family constellation forgotten when you ask, so how many children do you have? Right, and then they only put in the children that they raised, and then you immediately see them imbalance. Right, there's somebody missing. So let's talk about situations where you have this bond that two people are bound together by destiny. First of all, it can be temporary, or it can be throughout lifetime. That would be by soul agreement or karma or whatever concept you can picture, where you agree on a metaphysical level to something, to be together with somebody in a certain time of their lives. It can be by accidents. So we always say accident, but nothing is accidental about an accident. So accidents are also a kind of destined to happen in a way, right? Tragedy, every kind of tragedy that is releasing severe emotions, traumatic emotions, can create a destined relationship. A disease could do the same, right? A severe disease that one is giving to somebody else, for example. The caring for somebody else can also create a bond, for example, an adoptive mother or father towards the adoptive child. Although they are not in the same family system because they're not blood related, they still can become part of the family system through caring. But that must be a caring on a really deep level, right? Because adoption, that's another issue, but just to say, a lot of adoptions are not ignited by caring, but by egoistical tendencies, right? There are reasons why somebody wants to adopt a child. And there is, in the orders of love, not morally, not legally, but in the orders of love, there's a right way to adopt a child and a wrong way to adopt a child. And when if there was the wrong way to adopt a child, somebody will suffer in the family system. Yeah. Very often the own children or the grandchildren or the sibling of the adopted child, right? So that is common. So this is why you need to alarm clocks going on when you hear about adoption from a client or from a family member, that there are several ways to look at it, and that it is not automatically just because they're adoptive parents, they don't automatically not belong to the family system of the adopted child. Then we have how it can end, because destiny blood never ends, but destiny bound by a bond created by destiny does end, because it has a beginning. Everything that has a beginning has an end. So it can end either with fulfillment of the duty, because the partner, for example, if it's often it's a partner, like a romantic partner, comes in out of a duty. Yeah, it has agreed to it. Maybe through karmic occurrences in past lives, maybe through soul contract on an astral level, whatever it was, but it was, it was the duty of the partner to come and then fulfill the duty, and then he or she can go again. That's one way. Of course, death is normally creating the end for a relationship that is bound together by destiny. And then the signs are for a relationship bound by destiny is that a partner is leaving the relationship, although they still, he or she still feels love, right? So this is when you hear this from a client or somebody who wants your help, is that's a sign that there is a relationship bound by destiny. Or the other way around, and this is quite common, by the way, not leaving the partner, although no love is felt. right? There's also this urge to fulfill a duty. And this can be, it could be, this is why we are not pre-assumptions in a family constellation. It could be all sorts of causes to that, but one of it could be that it is a relation bound by destiny and the duty is not fulfilled yet. Of course, it could be another entanglement too, but that's what you see then in a constellation. So this is why we are not assumptions. We are not thinking about it. We are watching it. We are observing it, and then we see. The forgotten or the dismissed are part of the family system. These are family members no one talks about. You might have this family member that you think there is a family member in your family, but nobody really talks about it. So that's always alarms, signals up, ears up, high alert. There is something really interesting going on and something that might need to be discovered, not intellectually, but in a family constellation that could heal the family wound. Yeah. They leave the forgotten or dismissed. They have left the family conscience. We talk about the conscience later. However, they are still part of the family system, right? Just because they don't want to be part of the family system doesn't matter to the family soul. Yeah, that is not their choice. You know, when you're part of the family system, you're part of the family system until the duty is over, right? And you cannot say, "Oh, I'm done. I changed my mind." That's not a way out. Sometimes the forgotten or dismissed are, oh, you don't see that. Hang on, why is it not? Here we go. Sometimes the forgotten or dismissed, they are dismissed or they want to leave the family system because of sexual preferences that are morally not accepted, right? So this happens also a lot. However, the family soul is not taking that as a excuse, you know. They have their right in the family system and they need to take their place and be acknowledged for it, right? Some family members just vanish from the face of the earth, often in war situations. They cannot be found. Maybe they are dead and nobody finds their corpse, their body, or they use this confusion after in the war when the war is over to vanish and start a new life with a new name and go away from their family. However, these are still members of the family system, of course, and have their role, have their place, and need to be found and acknowledged, not in real life, but in a family constellation. Disowned and excommunicated members, also few generations away, that's a common course of somebody of the family system to not be acknowledged and not be, you know, thought about or talked about or just completely forgotten. The dead play a big role in the family system, and we are working with so-called dead people a lot because we are going back so many generations. Of course, they're all dead, right? And then in person, not their souls, however. And this is why they belong to their family system, because it is only the soul that counts, not the body. The physical body has no relevance for the family soul. We just need to get out of our head that this makes, you know, this is just no relevance. This also leads us then to the question which or who or what is actually dying. Yeah, if for the family system that makes no difference, maybe it should make no difference to us neither. But this is actually the whole topic we will look at in module 4, right? And we will do exercises about it in module 4. So let's talk about adoptions. This is always a good question because one way or the other, everybody has or knows somebody who has adopted a child or will adopt a child or was an adopted child. So these are also the cases where I urge you not to talk to about the orders of love just out of context, because they would not be able to understand that, right? But however, if they are struggling with the topic of adoption, you can always ask them to go on a family constellation and look at it from the soul point view of the family members, because then something else is conveyed that is beyond the intellect, right? With the adopted child or parents, they are bound by destiny when the adoption causes an imbalance. Yeah. And that's what I call like the bad way to adopt. Because there's a good way to adopt and then there's a bad way to adopt. What would that be? If you look at a family system and how important it is that the blood-related family members are taking their rightful place, then you know when you take a child out of family system and give it to somebody else, that might cause some imbalance. But when this child has no parents of their own, then it is open for adoption. However, most adoptions are not like this. They are not from from an orphan, right? And they still have one or even two living parents, but they don't want or they cannot look after the child anymore, and then they give it up for adoption. And although this is a common practice and may work for them, for the soul it doesn't work. Because as long as this child, the soul of the child, has a parent, it expects the parents to look after it. And this is the difference between adoption and caregiving or fostering. If somebody wants to look after a child, they can foster or caregive. You know, they're not stepping into the role of the parents. The parents is never legally out of the picture. Adoption is pushing the whole family system from the parents away and tries to impose another family system on this child, which isn't working, not for the family soul. Yeah. So when you have the case of an adoption, it is always good to ask, are the parents of the adopted, the blood parents of the adopted child, were they still alive when the adoption took place or not? Because this is an indication that there's an imbalance that needs to be addressed. That is the most significant marker, you know, if you will, for an imbalance in an adoption case. Also, of course, adoptions that are selfish motivated, and actually, to be honest, lots of them are. Yeah. I know a case where the mother had 3 children. They are all grown up. She had a new partner, and she got pregnant with a new partner. And now the child that was born was quasi an own child because the siblings were all 15 years and older. Yeah. So now she said, "Oh, I think I don't think this child will be happy on its own. It's just a thought. It's just a concept, right? Happy on its own. So I adopt another child as a playmate." And then she has adopted this other child from, I think it was Haiti or something, where they had, like, this is years ago, when they had this devastating earthquake or flooding or whatnot. Yeah. And as far as I know, she actually talked to the parents about the adoption of the child. No, they make kind of a deal, and then with the government, of course, and then so blah. So definitely this child still had their parents. And then I know from how this child grew up, lots and lots of problems, of course. It's just an imbalance that will never be forgotten. So even if the relationship becomes good and this child grows up quite okay-ish and blah, 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 it does not even need to be encumbered, but somewhere maybe this child is marrying, having children, and now this child has a severe disease. Yeah. And now and then maybe 20 years later goes to a family constellation and all of a sudden realizes that this whole situation with adoption was causing the trauma in the parents, that he has inherited through epigenetic damage. So this is how it goes. So often we don't know what we are doing with our actions until a few generations later. So just take this home for now. In a family constellation, you see only the blood-related family members, yeah, all the ones were listed through destiny and action, and not the family system of the adopted parents. You might see the adopted mother or the adopted father as part of the family system through destiny as a single person, but the child is not part of the whole family system of the adopted family. Yeah. So in family constellations, you only see the people who belong to the family system. That is the first order of love. And I cannot emphasize that enough. If you find yourself in what they call a family system constellation, and they are bringing in all kinds of step kids and parents and patchwork family situations, and it's going wild with great grand siblings or whatnot. So excuse me, I have a really dry throat. Sorry. That might be fun, a fun workshop, but it's not a family system constellation in the method of bird handling. Okay. To explain why family constellations work, I like to explain it with a picture of the river, and I will probably come back to this picture a lot. A stream, if you will. Now, we all know the stream has a source, and the source of a stream is always somewhere up. And then the stream flows down until it finds flat water, which is the destiny of the stream, which is the ocean or wherever the stream becomes one with the other larger body of water. Now, a family system works exactly like this. The energy comes from the source, and the energy is synonymously with love. Nourishing, unconditional, giving love. And it flows through the generations like the stream down. And every birth, mother, child, father, child, is letting the love flow always from top, always from the parents towards the child. The love doesn't flow back. The river not flow back. No stream flows against upstream. No. The love only goes in one direction, and no matter what other people think or say, that is the orders of love, and that is accurate if you look at it in family constellation. Everything else is confusion, which causes suffering. Yeah. So this river, however, does not ideally flows undestructive down 7 generation or 14 generation or however generation until it becomes one with the vast sea or consciousness, if you will. More often there are rocks, big rocks, that through traumas are kind of thrown into the river. So the stream, or in our case the flow of love, is interrupted. And we have lots of these stones in our streams in every family system. Every trauma that one family member who belongs to the family system suffers that is not cleared is a rock that is kind of hindering the stream of love or the energy of love to flow from one generation to the other. And remember, the family system has one goal and one goal only: existing of this system in a healthy way, of course, right? So it will not forget this rocks. It will always know why the rocks are there, and it will always try to remove the rocks. And that is what we do with every family constellation. We go in, we find the rock, and we take it out and put it aside where it belongs. So every time with every family constellation in one family system, the flow of love can flow again there. And and if you look at this, if you have this picture in your mind, when you think or when you do a family constellation for yourself, for others, then you know already a lot about the orders of love. Every rock, which we call trauma, is also called an entanglement in the language of family constellation, right? So that is synonymous with trauma. It is just an entanglement, is a traumatic experience that not you are engaged with, but two other people. So an entanglement is a triangle. There are three people involved. The one who has a problem, the issue, is not the one who was part of the cause. This one is entangled either with one of the others. And this is why it's so difficult to find. But it's not difficult when do you apply the orders of love in the family constellation. And this is what we do. This is what you learn in this training. So, and now the question is, why does a family soul only stores the traumatic experiences and not everything else, like the happy experiences? Because every happy experience, everywhere where love flows, is nourishment and care. And it's kind of what is nourishing the family soul. So it's consumed, you know, not stored. It's like your pantry. When you are hungry, you open your pantry, you take food out and you eat it. So it's consumed, it becomes you, right? Everything else that you're not consuming is still in the pantry, but everything you have consumed is becoming you. Same with the family soul. Everything that is love, under the energy of love, that is flowing in the orders of love, is nourishing the family soul. It's consuming it, doesn't need to store it. However, in the pantry of the family soul, there are all the traumas. There are all the entanglements that have not been consumed yet. So every family constellation is like the family soul opening the pantry, taking out one trauma and consuming it, transforming it into love. This is the a kind of a picture, if you will, for the morphogenetic field. What is the informing field? Some call it the informing field, that is storing the information that led to the trauma. And this is the information that we are accessing in a family constellation to find the rock in the river, take it out, and let the love flow again. And these informations are so spot on delivered by the morphogenetic field that it's still, even if you do it for 15 years on a daily basis, it's kind of mind-blowing. How precise the information is delivered to a representative about everything that is needed to clear the path. Take the rock, let the love flow. So I would like to talk a little bit, not too much about the new versus the old family constellation, the method of Bert Hellinger, because you might came across it or you will come across it. Bert Hellinger has started with family constellations in the 80s. He was a priest, by the way, a Catholic priest who was a missionary in Africa. And he left the Catholic Church after a long and dedicated time working, like he was in his 50s, because he found out that these morals are not healing anything. And he actually married a nun. So they lived together, both left the church. And then he studied psychology because he was interested in to look deeper into the souls in another way, more scientific way than the church is doing. And from his studies, he started to develop his own methodology from family sculpturing in the 1950s. He discovered in the 1980s that actually the representative in a workshop are moving themselves. You don't need to ask them to move. He calls this then later the movement of the souls. So in an old family constellation, he would ask everybody to bring information from the family. Then he would use this information to gather information, and then he would use this information to place as many representatives as possible for this family system. This is why he needed large workshops, and then he would see where is something going on that needs attention. Yeah. So it is kind of this inquiring. So you put everybody there, then you look and you see, you inquire. And he did that probably for 20 years. And he also taught that in this time until the beginning of the century, in the 2000s. And then he came to an epiphany when he realized that if he goes straight to the issue and just places representative for the issue, he has a much quicker result, right? And much more accurate often. And he doesn't need as many people, not as much time, and it is forceful, more powerful. And that is what he called then the new family constellation, or going with the spirit. That's another term for it. Going with the spirit, or going with the spirit mind, or just simple, the new family constellation. This is what I've been taught by him and Sophie Hellinger, and this is also what I teach you. So I'm not going to teach you the old family system, family constellation. However, I know practitioners who are still doing the old family system. This is nothing wrong with it. Just say it just takes much longer, takes more people, and is a little bit tiring for everybody. That's the only difference, right? It works obviously as well. And also I think, when I just think about the old and the new family system, that obviously when he passed away, that was like the virtual reality was not his world, right? He had all this in-person big workshops with up to 500 people. For us, I think what we are now facing is what I like to call the next family constellation. It's like the next level of family constellation. Because what happened, what I found out, what others found out, especially now this 2 years in the lockdown situation, is that the connection of the clients and the representatives to the morphogenetic field are virtually very strong. And I would also say, and lots of practitioners are saying that, stronger than in person. Why is that? It is logic if you think about it. The morphogenetic field works beyond time and space, right? So the virtual reality works at least beyond space as well, right? It's already one step closer to the morphogenetic field. Also, the participants who are sitting at home in front of their screen, they are feeling more relaxed when they are part of a workshop, right? They're more relaxed. They feel not so self-conscious. They don't need to travel and stress out about meeting other people. Yeah. And this makes them connect easier also to the field. So it has a strong impact. However, what is more complicated, if you will, is if you're facilitating online, obviously, because there are lots of hints that you don't get, that you would get when you see the people moving, right? So that's it. But other than that, it has a really, really strong impact. And this is why I feel this is kind of the way, the future way. And I like to think of it, it's the next step, the next family constellation. But that's not an official term. Just my makeup term. And that's what I was just talking about. So constellating organizations is also possible, and there's a lot of demand. You have, commercial clients, if you will. I had a lot, not only as a lawyer, also as a facilitator in Europe. Large companies or political institutions that want a constellation where they have representative for their organization. which works very well. And we will go through that and we will train this as well. I think that's in module 5, if I think, yeah. So now let's talk, and I don't want to spend too much time here, so I will just go through the slides really quickly. You can always rewind it when you recap the video content. It is a lot of information and I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want to convey that because it was telling us babies, so to speak, to incorporate and talk about the conscience and how this plays out in real life and in family constellations, obviously. So we have to look at the conscience from 3 different perspectives: from the personal, the collective, and the conscience of the spirit mind, or the God consciousness, or however you want to call that. We also want to look at destiny and common destiny and what's the difference and how, why do we need to know that? So let's first of all go with the personal conscience. The conscience and family system just means that action is guided by the conscience. We all do that. We do things and we have either good or a bad conscience if we do it. That's just how life works. Harmful actions are often based on a good conscience. Like look at the war situation. The soldiers, feels good about killing other people, right, in this war situation, but not at home if he would kill the neighbor because he doesn't like the way they walk their dog, right? So this is, looking at situations from different perspectives, decides if you feel good about your actions or bad about your actions. It can be the same action, absolutely the same. The conscience also only works in systems. That is an important piece of information because systems are organized fields, right? Remember, not chaotic fields. So the conscience is part of the organizing in a system. The conscience is actually a driving part of the organizing a system because the consciousness is defining the action, right, of a system. Outside the system, this conscience reveals its true face. So if we are looking at the war scenario again, this soldier who is within the system of the government and the soldiers and so feels safe, has a good conscience, killing other people, right? But if this soldier steps out of this system and goes into the other, for example, this system of the victim or of a religious group who is not who has a different conscience and is not allowing killing, let's say that, yeah, all of a sudden this action reveals its true face, that is actually killing somebody. No excuse, it's just killing somebody, taking somebody's life. So conscience is only to be understood within the system. From outside the system, or act on within the system. Outside the system, you can't use it for your action anymore, right? As a guideline. Also remember, conscience is trial, animal nature, and not a good guide at all, right? Because it only works within your system and it has to do with conditioned, learned behavior. What is good and what is bad. Connected with the emotion of guilt and atonement, many bad things have been done with a feeling of innocence. Like a lot of this in history. Like a lot of people do bad things and think that's totally okay. And they do a good thing. A good thing for their family, of course, right? For their family. Guilt and innocence are not equal, therefore, for good and bad in one's action. And this is why in a family constellation, we never think in terms of good and bad. We look at the emotion, how she is. Guilt, and we associate it with the dynamic in a family system, perpetrator or disadvantage giver. We never think of good or bad. That will lead us astray because that depends on the family system if it's good or bad. It's not objective. So the personal conscience is more felt than objective detectable, right? And we perceive our own actions as either good or bad depending on our personal conscience. That's it. So it's not a good guide. Why is it so? It secures our belonging to our family. We are defining ourselves through our family system and what they perceive as good and bad, right? We are conditioned within the first 7 years, all of us, because we are in theta state in this early childhood years, precisely in a state of hypnosis when we are between 2 and 6 years, and in alpha state when we are just about 5 to 8 years, right? And then after that, we can more kind of reflect and react towards what is happening. So everything that happens within the first 7 or so years of one's life is becoming automatic behavior for survival. We call it also conditioning, and that is also defining what we are experiencing as good and bad. So it's not objective. We cannot rely on this. It also defines the boundaries of our behavior and creates judgment of the behaviors of others. Like what we think is good, the others have to think it too. Of course, they have a completely different conscience. They have a completely different conditioning. And this is how war starts, right? Between belief systems, for example, or families, you know. So if somebody wants to go, and this is really important, because you might know it for yourself. If somebody really wants to go beyond these boundaries of the family conscience, they have to have a bad conscience, because they are a rebel. It's like a rebellion against the family. And that's when you are evolving. So don't feel bad when you start in your own personal development to question what the family always finds right or wrong, and when you are not happy and content with that anymore. This is a good sign. So a feeling of guilt arises often more than the feeling of innocence when you obviously leave the boundaries of your family system. In relationship, this conscience has a good reason, and it fulfills 3 needs. First of all, basic need is the need for bond. We want to bond with other people, and that we do through attachment. Most people call that love, but it's not love. Attachment, it's neediness. Love is reserved for unconditional love, right? Nourishing love. The need for bond is through attachment. The second basic need is the need for order, and the need for order is achieved through obedience. Right? The family wants you to obey whatever they think it's good or bad, or whatever they think they should do or not do. And we like to obey because we have the need for order, and we feel bad if we don't. We might not always obey, but we don't feel good about it in our hearts. And then there is the need for balance. And the need for balance is felt through compensation. So a permanent giving and taking is an exchange in relationship that is fulfilling a need. And if there is no exchange in a relationship, there is no relationship. A relationship is also defined by an exchange, whatever that is. Whatever you exchange, but it is an exchange. If the one is only taking and the other is only giving, the relationship comes to an end. There is not an exchange, or one is always giving and the other is kind of absent. There is no relationship. So the three basic needs are often in conflict with each other, and they follow different aspects of the personal conscience. For example, if you're in need for bond with a family member, and then you feel guilty if you are excluded, obviously, because you want to bond and now you're excluded, so you feel guilty. And innocent if you are included into the family, even if the family does bad things. Now, if you would be born in Sicily as part of a mafioso boss, right? The family would expect from you that you are, I don't know, stealing from others, right? Huh? And that is just the family that you were born with, and you would feel included into the family if you steal. Although on a moral aspect, you would think that's a bad thing, but not in this family. So you don't feel bad about it at all, as long as you stick within the boundaries of the family, and the family system is the only one that you're relating to, and they are fulfilling your three basic needs. If you're in need of compensation, for example, you feel receiving as guilt and giving as innocence, right? You want to give better than to receive. That's very common, actually. And that is actually causing imbalance, often an imbalanced relationship. It's a lack of being able to receive. If you're in need of order, you'll feel fear of punishment as guilt and loyalty as innocence, right? So everything is looked differently at. Now, in the collective consciousness that exists in addition to the personal conscience and is a function to enforce the orders of love in a family system or in a system in general, not only a family. It aims to integrate the excluded and forgotten, the dead family members, by choosing another family member who is alive to represent this person, therefore creating an entanglement between these family members. That is when we come in and see this entanglement and make it visible in a family constellation and clear it there. Let the love flow again. This entanglement is not felt as good or a bad conscience, rather as imitation of the represented family member. So you often see an entangled person has no strong emotions, not strong emotions of anger or guilt or shame, but is doing exactly the same thing as one of the other family members who's probably long passed on. This is an entanglement. They are not possessed by this ancestor, this spirit or something like this. No, it's just the information that the morphogenetic field has stored in the family soul has been given to this descendant to act like this, so the other is not forgotten. That's all. Very simple. But of course, somebody acts not truly to their own life destiny, it's always acts kind of strangely different and doesn't like it. And then this person comes to family constellation because it's not happy. This person is not happy about it. And this is when you see it and you can help and clear. The representative is feeling a sensation of being twisted and torn at all times, cannot focus on his own life, for example. That's just examples, no? Feeling of being controlled remotely is something you hear sometimes, not fulfilled or happy, driven against his or her own will. Sometimes they say they feel like they live two lives. And all these symptoms are quite similar to an attached spirit as well. So only in a family constellation you can actually see if it's an entanglement or an attached spirit. Symptoms can be quite similar. If the excluded family member is seen in a family constellation, this entanglement can be lifted, and the client feels an enormous relief of and freedom to live his or her own life, because the love can flow again. The love can flow again in this family system. One big boulder has been taken off the stream and put aside. These entanglements are often repetitive and can be seen in the previous generations, and there's actually kind of a rhythm to it. These entanglements are often skipping one generation. So these entanglements are often seen in the generation of the grandparents, and then in the situation in the fourth generation, and then in the sixth generation. So that is often the case. And often these entanglements are not passed on to a child, but to a grandchild. This is a kind of pattern that you see. It is the destiny of a family member to be entangled. It's often chosen before birth with the agreement of their soul, of course. And they are often, or they are always, the most loving family members, because they are kind of agreeing to sacrifice a part of their life or even their whole life to the family system to represent this family member who has been forgotten. The deep unconscious love of one family member to the excluded one makes way for the healing movement of the soul. So that's what you then see in the family constellation. There is this deep love from this family member to the excluded one. Otherwise, they would never agree to do it. It's always love there. The collective conscience has boundaries as well. It includes only family members of the first order of love and excludes all others. This is why we need to know who belongs, because this is the boundary of the family, of the collective conscience of the family system. The collective conscience rules over the personal conscience. So it's the bigger conscience, if you will. The personal conscience tells a family member to do something because it feels right. So, for example, making a child wants to atone for the sins of the parents, because that's what, in this family system, what people do. And the collective conscience is not tolerating this behavior because it's a violation of the second order of love, which you learn tomorrow, who comes first, and therefore overrules the personal conscience and creates an entanglement to make sure it's not being forgotten. It's an imbalance. So this is a very clever system that makes sure that the family wound will always get the chance to be healed within 7 generations. Now we have the vast conscience of the spirit mind, or the God conscience, if you will, that roofs above the personal and the collective conscience, and it unites both and also dissolves the boundaries. This is why Bert Hellinger has called his new family constellation Going with the Spirit Mind, because in the end, the healing movement is dissolving the boundaries into love, right? Let that love flow, and all boundaries that have been set before, they can dissolve into that. This conscience has no boundaries, no judgment, no good or bad, doesn't exclude anybody or anything. And this is also the conscience where family constellation facilitating takes place. These are the rules. No judgment, no boundaries. There's no good or bad, no exclusion. Its role is to unite whatever needs unity, let the love flow wherever it was interrupted and is created, and is love itself, if you will. One can experience this conscience in the same way as a personal conscience, with a feeling of belonging, contentment, guidance, and harmony, but no feelings of guilt or innocence are present. That's the difference. And why we love this work is because when we are representing in a family constellation or facilitating or our client, we are accessing this conscience of the spirit, and this is where we can feel this love beyond boundaries and beyond judgment. And this is when we are vibrating on the same vibration, or we are resonating on the same vibration as is this conscience of the spirit mind, and this is opening our heart. That's synonymous to it, and this is why it is so beautiful, beautiful work to do, not only for the client you are helping, but also for yourself, of course. Peace, tranquility, guidance is felt in this conscience, to be in a place where no problems are to be solved. That's another hint that you are there, and no problems need to be solved. Then you ask to say, yeah, why am I doing this? And if no problems need to be solved, well, but you still want to create and help the love flow and take this boulders out of the stream, right? You still, that's still, but you still think, but whatever the family has done or what has been done, it is what it is. There's not, there's no place to judge it, right? It cannot be changed anyhow. For the past, of course, it can only be entangled with the effect of lifting burdens from the past and the future. How to access this conscience is to allow the personal and the collective conscience to dissolve into it. So let go of it. And that is also the state of the facilitator. Your morals, your personal conscience, or even your collective conscience of your family system is not present. It's just not there. Okay, and in the same way, we are just going through destiny, common destiny, and free choice, and what we need to know briefly about that as far as family constellations and the orders of love is regarded. So destiny is felt as something pre-existing, no? Something that is out of one's control. It also often feels as a strong urge to achieve something. It can be towards good or bad. That makes no difference. And it is always supported by a good personal conscience or a good collective conscience, right? Because on this level of beingness, you have agreed to it, or the person you're working with has agreed to it. So it is felt as good. The common destiny is the destiny of the whole family system. Also, this exists, right? It might come up or might come not up in a family system, constellation. Everything can be represented. Also, the family system can be represented by a member of the workshop. So if this is ever becoming an issue, you can also represent the family system as a whole by one, if you want to know if that has an impact on the family constellation. And then, of course, also the destiny dissolves completely in the conscience of the spirit, right? Everything dissolves there and kind of is transformed into unconditional love. So what about free choice? If we are thinking that this is all destined, do we have a free choice? Do we not have a free choice? What do you think about free choice? I'm sure you have thought about free choice before. Have you? Have you wondered if you have free choice in your life or not? Honestly. Yes, Rosemary?
I always like to have free choice, and there are different beliefs, and in a way they tell you there is a plan, but in a way then feeling like I wouldn't be choice. Why would I get up in the morning?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know, but I would like to have free choice, but maybe it's all destiny. I don't know.
Okay. So you are undecided whether it exists or not.
I want free choice.
Very
Tell
good.
me.
Well, we will talk about that throughout the whole training, to be honest. There's no easy answer to it. Reem, what do you want to say to it?
I wanted to say the same thing. Like, I do believe that we have a free choice to make decisions, but at the end of the day, the destiny is like, sometimes I do feel like everything led me to this point. Like, when you, like, maybe at this point in time, you don't see the bigger picture, but then like 10 years from now, like, okay, now it makes sense. Like, this is why I was at that place at that time when I met that person. It just feels like the older I get, the more pieces are put together, and I feel like everything literally got me to where I am. Like, I think it's a mixture of both, but I still feel like, as Rosemary was saying, like, I really that, yeah, we have the free will, but maybe not everyone acts on it. Like, if you want to change, if you want to, like, you have to make the effort, you have to put like attention and work on it. I don't know. Okay, I think I didn't give
very good
an
thought.
Rosemary.
Very good thoughts, right? Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Anyone to share thoughts?
I think, can I share?
Yes, of course, please.
Someone, it's not mine, someone had shared this with me and it kind of stuck, that I think destiny, if you're standing on 2 feet and I say raise 1 foot, that's free choice. And then if I say raise both feet, that's destiny. So I think like the bigger picture, a lot of it is in place, but the way we navigate it, we have that free will within that space to navigate as well. I don't know.
That's a good, I like that picture. Very interesting. I would say look at free choice and destiny from different standpoints. It depends on from where you look at to make the decision whether you have free choice or destiny or everything is destined. So in the greater picture, in the big picture, everything is destined. But then when you come to concrete situations, you have a choice, because every choice is steering your life experience direction, and that is creativity, and that's what life is all about, to make choices and then go with it and experience your choice. But if you have not made and then all the lifetimes you are living, you get all these chances to do all these different choices to finally come to where you are destined to come to. That is the end of your life experience when you can move on. But until then, I think there are lots of choices to do. That's how I look at it. Yes, Rain.
But is it really a choice if you are destined, like this is your destiny, you're supposed to take this job, you're supposed to marry this person? Was it really my choice then if I actually made when it was written for me, or was...
I would put it that way. You look at the greater picture. So now here's a Reem who's living in 2022. Yeah. And then there's this guy, and there is this yes to meet. Yeah. And now you meet. And now you have to decide, is this the one or is it not the one? That's your choice. You can go with it or not. If you go with it, you're steering your life in a certain direction. Might be happy, might be suffering, whatever it is. Then next lifetime, you're coming back. You might have you met this guy again, and now you have the choice to say no. And then you steer your life in the other direction, and that might be happy or might be suffering. So you're experiencing your choices. So you have to make choices to experience your life from all kinds of angles. right? But in the end, these are all just experiences that do not mean much in the greater scheme of things, because your soul just wants to evolve into higher vibration. And we are talking about that in module 4 to a much greater detail. That this is how I perceive free choice and destiny. Okay, shall we leave it here and move on? Okay, cool. So guilt is an emotion that is very important in family constellations and very important to understand the orders of love, because it's not objective, it is felt, right? It's not like guilt like we learn in school or in religious context. It kind of seems to be something objective. It's not, right? It is a feeling that depends on the conscience. That's all. It is subjective. And then in the end, on the greater scheme of things, and this is we coming to destiny, in the greater scheme of there is no guilt. Because in the greater scheme of things, things need to happen the way they happen, right? And nobody is guilty of anything. And this is also when we are kind of solving this perceived good or bad about the guilt into the conscience of the spirit mind, where it is the boundaries are dissolving. Because if everything is in the end need to be experienced to come to where you're destined to come to, there is no room for guilt for doing what you do or what anybody else is doing. Then we also have to think about divine intervention. If things are really not bound to happen because you're not destined to have it, there would be divine intervention, right? I call it divine intervention. Your higher self kicks in, or what, however you want to call it, right? So guilt is an emotion that comes from the family conscience and is programmed in before the child is 7 years old. And there's, I forgot who it was, but I think it was a politician or somebody. He said, give me your child and I make it, what was it, mine or something within the first 7 years, you know. So where the child is living in the first 7 years is what is determined, what it believes is good or bad. And of course, coming to this emotion of guilt, which is quite not even, you know, if you were real, it is a source of great suffering, guilt. Great. If you have really experienced with feeling of guilt in your life, it is you can't really bear it. You know, you have to push it away because. And we will also in module 4 look at the frequency of the emotion so low that you cannot live under this in the state of guilt. So you cannot live feeling guilt. So it has to be replaced with another emotion, which could be grief or sadness, often sadness, or even anger. These are all substitutes for this underlying emotion of guilt. So death and karma. When I say karma, is everybody okay with the term? Do you know what I'm talking about, or do I have to explain that? Anybody not clear about the term karma? Okay, cool. So when this is the same question like destiny and free choice or something like that, right? So if we are looking at death and karma, we are in this context, we are thinking of cause of an effect of actions that are going from one lifetime to the other. So then we are also thinking of when, you know, in the concept of fear and death, when we are fearing death, why do we fear it? When we know that we are karmic destined to come back and experience it from the other side, right? So if we fear something, there's a perpetrator and victim situation, we will always experience it from both sides in the long run, right? So if we are thinking of the concept of karma,